What's up, guys? So today we have a question by pdemarle. I probably completely screwed that up. My apologies for the sound of my voice. I might sound nasally, getting over a cold. So I'm trying to hang in there. So the question essentially is, did you keep track of financial records like profit and loss over time, profit margins, etc.? Or did you deem it too risky to keep books in case they fell into the wrong hands? Absolutely kept no books. Nope. So you can calculate, profit and loss. I know what I'm buying, right? I know what I'm going to sell it for, depending on if it's the darknet or, in real life, in bulk. Either way, I know. I don't need to have that recorded because I'm not paying taxes. I don't need to reference that information, once it's done. As far as like figuring out my profit margins and ROI on different things, that's something that I think like you can do once and, you shouldn't have to do over and over again. Like I can look and I can say, okay, if I, what am I paying for an ounce of cannabis? What am I selling it for? Figure out my return on that and then do that with every other product that I have. I pretty much, I know my profit, my loss off that. The other thing that I like to calculate is the risk, because at the end of the day, you start selling fentanyl or meth or any of that kind of stuff, like you're going to put a target on your back, that's going to interest investigators a lot more. They hate acid. They hate, powder cocaine. They didn't really hate all that much, but they absolutely hate things like ecstasy and acid. So yeah, absolutely, too risky. There's no need for it. Like I said, you're not paying taxes on it. You don't need to write down deductibles. Like there's no reason for it whatsoever. Which is nice. It's just less paperwork, less red tape. In my opinion, it's kind of how business should be run in this country. Like we shouldn't have to pay. Like I go to work and I get 25% or 10% of my salary forcibly taken from me. And then whatever money I have left over, I go make a purchase at the grocery store and I pay tax on that. And then like if I combine those ingredients and sell them, I have to pay tax on the product. That like it just seems like multiple, I'm getting taxed 3-4 times by the end of it, but that's a whole different discussion. So I didn't want any records, I was really big on actually proactively destroying records. Like I go and I create I have a sale, right? And whatever that sale is, like I use thermal printer to print out addresses, because a regular printer has micro printing, which puts your IP address into it on a very small scale. Anyways, that's a side issue. But on the thermal printer, I would print out like the address, and then on the back of that slip, I would write whatever that person ordered. So it would be like, I don't know, John Smith, 123 Main Street. Then on the back it would say a pound of weed, right? So now when I go up to bag that up and to ship it, I would peel off that, like I would see what it is. I'd put all the cannabis sales together, all the coke sales together, all the MDMA sales together. So like now I know when I access this product, I access it once. I get all these, these orders set where it's all bagged up in the right amounts, box it up. Now I know I'm good. And I'm peeling off the labels as I'm going, putting them on. And then that now the things that I'm keeping are just strips that say like 1 pound, or like whatever it is, but they don't have any personal identifiable information. Even those strips though, I would burn on a daily basis. Like I didn't want a ton of them around, so absolutely, like incinerate records is a great thing. Keeping records is a horrible thing. Because at the end of the day, like the United States attorney could easily like look at that and say, like now so you have a thing called ghost weight in the feds, right? And ghost weight's like, if I sell you an ounce a week, right? Ounce of weed every week, I sell it to you. Now let's say I keep records and I've been selling it to you, you know, for years, right? If I kept records, when I get rated, let's say you tell on me and you say that I've been selling it to you for a year, I get charged not just with selling you an ounce of weed that they actually take, but all of that stuff I sold to you in the past. Those are all charges. Even if they don't have the drugs, they can charge you with selling those drugs, which they will tack on to what's called converted drug rate, which will determine the amount of time that you will do in prison. So keeping records is a horrible idea unless you want to do an extra 15 to 20. And the beauty with darknet markets is they come and they go. You know, they're very short-lived entities. So the feds don't really know what markets you are on or how many sales you made, because unless that site's actually archived. I hope that answers your question.